Bismillah. Welcome back, Zoo Crew. So today we're gonna do a full deep dive on being a realtor. So you could call this the realtor's blueprint for 2026. And I guess before we even get started, we should talk about sales as a career. Most people who have a sales job treat it like a job, not a business. If you are in sales, you need to be treating it as a business. So that means you are managing your own time, you're generating your own leads, and like spending time on or investing in yourself, learning about sales, mastering your craft, right? So, and I guess this is really like the main distinction between people who are brokers and people who are realtors, right? So, people who get into real estate as a career will get their real estate license and become realtors, and then I don't know why they don't go and get their broker's license. So back in 2013, when my dad was telling me to go get my real estate license, and I was very anti, like, no, I don't want to be a realtor. Mainly that was my own fear of not being able to accomplish or get through the course, just because I had a very hard time in school and I wasn't diagnosed with ADHD, right? However, back then, you get your real estate license, and then 2 months later, you could apply to get your broker's license. Now you have to be a realtor for 2 years before you can apply to get your broker's license. And when you're a broker, you don't have to pay brokerage fees. You can open your own brokerage. And really, so the whole game of being a realtor is not actually selling houses, right? So contrary to what people would believe, they think that, oh, I'm going to be a realtor and I got to focus on selling houses. The real way to make money in this is by having agents who work for you. So becoming a team lead and then becoming a broker and having multiple agents who work under you, right? And you just have to be very good at generating leads and training your own realtors so they can close those leads, right? And then now if you have 10 agents who are closing like or doing like 10 deals each a month, you're getting a piece of that pie, right? So I guess before we can jump into like the whole business model, you got to pick a very good brokerage, right? So a lot of people go to Remax, people go to like Royal LePage, because these are like well-known real estate brokerages. And then we had EXP come onto the scene, and a lot of people jumped into EXP because it was a very unique model where the more agents you kind of recruit to EXP, you get a piece of the pie, right? However, because now it's been around for so long, you're literally never going to be at the top of the pyramid. You're going to be at the bottom of the pyramid. So it's not worth it, in my opinion, to go to EXP. You're much better off going to real brokerage. It's the same model as EXP, it's just newer. So when you recruit agents to come work under you, you're at the top of the pyramid or close to the top of what would be the pyramid, right? And like I'm saying pyramid, don't think I'm talking about a pyramid scheme. It's just the structure. It's like MLM, like you recruit people and you get a piece of the pie, right? So that's the way the world works. So yeah, you got to pick a good brokerage, and like people think, oh, I'm going to go to this brokerage and they're going to give me leads. So like this is not the way you're going to make money, and like you're not going to become successful if you're relying on your brokerage to give you leads or generate leads. I mean, good brokers will generate leads, good team leads will generate leads, but again, like you're much better off learning how to generate your own leads, right? So this is where marketing comes into play. So in my opinion, like first of all, I guess before we talk about marketing, we should talk about analog marketing versus digital marketing. So like 40 years ago, 50 years ago, people were realtors, but like there was no social media. So how were these people marketing? They were doing analog marketing. So that's billboards, flyers, door knocking, hosting seminars, business cards, networking events, etc., right? And then we had like the transition to social media. So the people who came onto that wave early built their brands and like they were generating business, right? Then it became known that, oh, you can use social media to generate business. And now every single realtor is like trying to become a TikTok influencer or like a social media influencer, and they've lost sight of their goal. Like if you're making content, it should be to generate leads, aka business, aka closings, right? Not to just like be putting out content. And because now everybody is online, the way you stand out is by doing the opposite of everybody else. So if everybody you know who's in real estate is heavy pushing online content, you should do the opposite and you should focus on analog, right? So billboards, flyers, door knocking, Door knocking, I don't know if it's that good or not, just because it's going to depend on you as a person, how good you are at talking, how quickly you can build rapport, and how well you can handle objections, right? Because most people, if you show up at their door, like they're gonna be like, what the fuck are you doing? Get out of here. Like, I don't want to talk to you, right? So you got to be very skilled as a salesperson. So if you are a realtor, I think you got to practice your skills, like your sales skills, and in every single situation, like throughout your day, be practicing building rapport, starting conversations, etc., you know. And like, you don't necessarily even have to like mention to people, yeah, I'm a realtor. Like, if you're good enough at building rapport, eventually they'll ask you what you do, and then at that point you can be like, oh yeah, like I'm a realtor. And you want to always play it as though you have more business than you actually have, right? You want to have authority and status, because people want to work with the agents who are busy. And really, like, when we break it down, like 80% of agents do 0 deals, period. That's why it's such a revolving door. Then you have 10% of agents who are doing between 1 to 12 deals a year. And then you have the final 10% of agents who are doing 12 to 120 deals a year, right? And it's like the Pareto principle, 80-20, right? 20% of the agents are doing 80% of the deals. It's not that crazy. It's not that unheard of. And people are like, oh, well, there's too many agents in my city. It's like, okay, well, 80% of these agents aren't doing deals anyway, so it doesn't matter, right? And the bigger the city you're in, the more listings that become possible for you, right? So now if I was to run ads online, let's talk about this from a digital marketing standpoint, right? If I'm running ads online, I'm doing 3 types of ads. I'm doing seller ad, I'm doing a buyer ad, and I'm doing an investor ad. The main one you want to focus on is sellers, right? Because it's all about leverage. If I'm a listing agent and my main focus is getting more listings, I'm now leveraging all the other agents in the city who are buyer agents, right? So I list the property and now I have 10, 20, 30 agents bringing their clients to my property, well, my client's property, to look at it and then get a deal, right? It's a much better use of time focusing on sellers than buyers or investors. The reason you're going to do buyer ads and investor ads as well as the seller ads is because that's just like your bonus or like the gravy on top, right? And the markets will go up and down. So sometimes you're going to have more sellers, sometimes you're going to have more buyers. And then investors are kind of just active throughout. But again, finding good investors, it's like a hard thing. So, but the thing is, it doesn't cost you much and it's not very time consuming to set up these ads, right? So in terms of a seller ad, you'd be doing like, get your free home value report, or like you'd want to like see what's going on in the market. So let's say there's a bank rate announcement, right? So I would word it as like, we don't know what equity you have anymore. The market is shifting. Find out for free what your home is worth today, right? And like, I created a bunch of these ads and tested them. It's just that off the top of my head, I don't remember the exact wording we used, but essentially, like, because in Canada you can't target people with your ad, right? So when you're trying to like target them, it has to be in the copy. So like the written word, right? You got to make somebody like emotional or curious to submit their information. And now most people who run ads, they just put the ad and then like they deal with it when they deal with it, right? So when you have a lead, if you're not getting back to them within 10 minutes, like that lead is dead, you know? And with the advent of AI, there's really no excuse. So this is what I would suggest. Let's say you're running this seller ad, right? Free home value report. What I would do is, using some kind of AI automation, whether that's Go High Level or something else, I would set it up so as soon as the lead is submitted, the person is getting a text message automatically being like, okay, thank you for submitting your lead with a link to an unlisted YouTube video. Now they're going to click that video and it's going to be you explaining like, hey, thank you for submitting your lead. I am XYZ Realtor. And I just want to explain to you the process now. Before I can give you your actual estimation or accurate value of your home, I'm going to need to ask you a few more questions. So my AI assistant is going to reach out to ask you these following questions, right? And like, that's about it for the most part. So the reason you're doing this is there's a few factors. One is now they can put a face to the name. It's not, you're not just some random realtor or like just another number, right? The second thing is you're now pre-framing them that an AI is going to reach out to them, right? If you just have AI like contact people, people are not stupid. They can figure out what's AI and what's not, right? And like by you pre-framing them, they're not going to be like, oh, this is suspicious, or like, oh, why is this guy's AI talking to me and not the real person? And then the third thing is you're now like creating more authority, because people are going to be like, oh, this guy is like very high tech. He's on top of his stuff. He got back to me right away. Like, this is the guy I want to work with, right? So most agents, they literally would just put up an ad and then that's it. They don't have this second layer, which is why you're going to see like maybe even if you get 100 leads, like only one of them converts, right? And by adding these extra steps, like, you are creating authority and you're not going to be wasting your time, because now the AI is going to qualify people and you're only meeting in person with people that you know are qualified or like actually have a house to sell, right? And you could put another layer onto this where like if they're not qualified, the AI will put them in a different bucket, and then you just drip feed them content, right? So once you have their phone number, you can literally bypass trying to get eyeballs on your content via social media, right? Now you can just have these like tips, or like tip for selling your house, how to get more value, renovations that actually increase value, etc., right? And you directly send these tips to the person, right? Obviously you need to get their consent to do this, but most people, like, they just don't read the fine print anyways, and like they'll just unsubscribe if they don't like the content. But like now you're top of their mind and you don't have to worry about trying to compete with everybody online, right? And like this is why like the people who were like crushing it in digital marketing focused on email lists, right? And like a great example of this is Ryan Leslie. He's a musician artist. Like, he figured out the game that like if I just have like 10,000 people who will directly buy my CD and I can sell them tickets directly, like I don't need distribution, I don't need like a big label, etc., you know? So that's something maybe we'll talk about in a different episode or like a later video. But yeah, so that's like the first piece, right? And this is what I'm saying. It's important to like learn how to generate business for yourself without relying on the brokerage, right? Now, if you get this dialed in, you're going to have more leads than you can handle, or more leads than you can close. And then at that point, you start recruiting agents to come work under you, right? This is why I think it's important, if you're a realtor, to go and get your broker's license and to be at a brokerage like Real Brokerage, right? Because you're going to have much more upside and much more freedom. Back in the day, you would have to go and actually open your own brokerage, and there's a lot of like due diligence and like back end office paperwork that is just extremely tedious. But with like Real Brokerage or EXP, these guys take care of the back end and you literally just recruit people, right? So I would say the first thing is, if you want to be successful as a realtor, go to Real Brokerage and start running your own ads and start generating your own business, right? You don't need to be doing content online. You're much better off running ads or doing like billboards, flyers, door knocking, hosting seminars where you're teaching people like first time home buyers how to or like selling your home, like how to maximize the property value, etc., right? And like if you really do feel like you want to be doing content, the type of content you should be doing, like this works especially well if you're in luxury real estate. Start doing podcasts, right? So like when you have like a house that you're going to sell, if it's like $1 million house, I guess probably we're talking more than $1 million now, because everyone's house is worth $1 million with the inflation. But like a very nice luxury home, the person who owns that, generally speaking, is going to be like a high net worth individual, a business owner, or somebody with a really cool story, right? So now you shoot a podcast in their house. So you're not only are you showcasing the house, you're building your brand. Most people who are successful love being interviewed anyways, and they're going to promote the shit out of your podcast episode. And now that becomes a unique selling feature you have, or like a unique kind of distinction between you and everybody else who's a realtor in luxury space, right? Or yeah, really, I mean, you could do this in any kind of home, but I feel like this works really well in the luxury homes market, not really like if you're doing just cheap houses. And look, this is the thing, like it doesn't matter the price point of the house. Like there's always buyers looking for something, whether that's like a townhouse, whether that's a luxury home or something in between, you know? And your job as a realtor is to ask your client the right questions and then match them with the right house, right? As long as you're like providing value and not just chasing a commission, you will go far in sales. It doesn't matter the industry you're in. That's like the truth of sales, right? People, when you get commission breath and like people can tell like you're just willing to say and do anything just to collect your commission, like you're not going to last long. You're going to burn relationships. People will start to talk, especially if you're in Ottawa and it's a small city. Like your reputation will be down the drain sooner or later, right? May take a couple days, might take a couple months, might take a couple years, but eventually this shit will catch up with you, right? And speaking from experience, like I've been burned by enough realtors, and I've seen enough realtors burn people for like an extra like couple $1,000. Like it's not worth it, you know? And then, so yeah, those are like the main key things I would say. So focus on generating your own business, then start recruiting people, right? And like the only way you're gonna have like a rock solid team is if you understand how to recruit people and how to train people, right? Because the real estate course doesn't teach you how to run a business, it doesn't teach you how to market, it doesn't teach you how to sell. These are all things you're gonna have to learn on your own. And if you get good at this, it becomes easier to recruit people, because as soon as somebody gets their license, they're looking for a mentor. They're looking for somebody to teach them how to do this, how to operate as a business, right? This is why if I was going to do this, first I would start at real brokerage, then I would get my broker's license, then I would open my own boutique brokerage. Mind you, like because of my background in real estate training with Black Card University, I have more of like an insight on how to train people in real estate, which would be my own kind of unique edge, right? But anyone who's been in the business for more than 10 years, like you shouldn't have a problem training guys or recruiting guys, right? And then like another tactic you can use to like recruit people is the managers in your office should all, like when you promote somebody, it should be a stipulation that they have to upgrade their car, right? So entry level realtors are all driving like C class or 3 series, like just entry level luxury. Then when you get into managers, they're driving like mid to high end luxury. And then when you get into like the brokers, these guys are all driving like hypercars or ultra luxury cars. You know what I mean? And this becomes a recruiting tool, because people will see the car out and about and they'll be like, oh, like, what do you do? Right? And now automatically they want to work with you, right? And then on top of that, like you could just put your logos on it and like a QR code or like your Instagram handle or whatever, and use that to generate more traffic or business. And your car becomes literally like a mobile billboard that you're driving around, you know? Obviously, like if you're not a good looking person, don't be putting your face everywhere. But at the same time, don't be like photoshopping yourself to look like somebody else, because this has happened to me enough times where like I'll see like a realtor's business card or like their image online, and then when I meet them in person, I don't even recognize them because of like the amount of filters and Photoshop that has been done to their image, you know? And like obviously it depends on the kind of like real estate you're doing, right? If you're just in like a ghetto neighborhood, or you're dealing with like townhomes and just low level housing, you want to look the part. Like you don't want to be showing up in like $100,000 car, right? If you're dealing with like investors or you're dealing with luxury properties, then yeah, okay, it makes sense to show up in $100,000 car, right? So you gotta like figure out where you're trying to go. And really, like if we're talking about residential real estate, it's a volume game, right? So you want to be getting as many listings as possible, and then just focusing on listings and recruiting agents. That's really how you'll make money, right? If you want to go into commercial real estate, like you'll make more money doing less deals, but it's harder market to break into. You need to have a much better understanding of economics and finance, and your clientele is a lot smaller. But when you're dealing with a higher price point, you're dealing with better buyers and better sellers. Like the caliber of person you're going to be dealing with, it's a lot easier to deal with, right? Whereas if you're dealing with like entry level homes, like there's still a lot you need to educate your clients on. And this is why, again, it's more important to focus on sellers than buyers. If you're focusing on buyers, like you have to educate them on a lot of different stuff, right? Whereas with sellers, like you don't really have to educate them too much. It's just like little tips and tricks on like how to boost their home value, if they should hire a staging company, etc. Right? And then like the beauty of real estate as an industry is there's so many other side like businesses you can add on, right? So like if you deal with investors, you can now start a property management company. If you deal with luxury homes, or even just like any kind of residential home, now you can start like a staging company, right? You own your own furniture, and now you can do staging for other people, etc. Like, and like there's so much possibility, but I think people just kind of lost sight of how to be a realtor, right? you're in real estate to do sales, but really you should be looking at it as though you have a business, regardless of what brokerage you're at, right? You're not just a salesperson. It's not just a job. Like if you look at it like that, you're not going to do deals, right? So really, I think this is like the ultimate way to go about being a realtor in 2026. So for those of you who are in real estate, I would say go through this video and let me know if you think there's something missing or something you want me to like go into more detail about. And the only reason I'm like so confident in this is, first of all, like I've looked at opening my own brokerage multiple times. I've looked at getting my real estate license multiple times. However, I just let my fear take over, like my fear of, oh, I won't be able to pass the exam, or I won't be able to get through the course, or just like being lazy and not like going through the course because it's super dry and boring material, right? And then I got to a point where I was like, okay, well, I'm better off just finding somebody who has a broker's license and partnering with them and like co-owning our own brokerage and then expanding, right? Because like everything I'm saying, like this is literally what I would do if I was to go into real estate as like a realtor and then a real estate broker and then like open my own brokerage, right? And like ultimately, if you are in real estate, your end goal should be to open your own boutique brokerage, you know? So yeah, that's my realtor's ultimate blueprint for 2026. And we'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace out.